Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
Intane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. Today it's just me. Tane is out doing his coaching joy, so I'm sure he's having fun out there. So you get to hear my voice. And as always, I'm going to share something that I learned over the last week. Over this week, it's been interesting because I have been traveling around in Wellington and doing some visits out there with some people. And the learning that I'm going to talk about today is I came across this theory called the four burner theory. It's a theory where I don't know whether it's true or false, but it's a four burner theory where in your life you have four areas of your life: your health, your family, your well-being, and work. And it's like this. Imagine a stove top, and we all have these parts in our life. And if we don't look after all those parts there carefully, one part is going to get burnt out, and it depends on how you spend your energy. So it got me thinking about which parts of my life or which parts of our lives do we spend so much energy on, and we forget about the other parts of our lives. And are we so unaware of that this is how we get things like burnt out or things that we just don't resonate with us. So yeah, it's going to get me thinking about which part of my life do I spend all my energy on, and when I'm doing that, then which part am I neglecting? So yeah, that's a thought that I have for today. But it's not about me. I mean, we're not here to hear a monologue from me. Today, we are very excited and very privileged and very honored to have a guest that is joining us from India. A bit of a background. I connected with this guest over LinkedIn because I really enjoyed the content they were sharing and they were engaging with my content. And we just realized that we have a very similar mindset about the areas that we enjoy and we grow in. However, like everybody that we've had in this podcast, everyone has got a journey and a story that they've got to the stage here. And this is why we think and we know that the story that Manpreet is going to have is going to be beautiful. Welcome to our podcast, Manpreet.
Thank you, Rajesh. It's really exciting to be here. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Fantastic. For our listeners who know nothing about you, do you want to tell them who you are and what are you doing at this point in time? And we'll go into how you got into where you were.
Absolutely. I'm Manpreet Dhanjal, born and bred in India, and I enjoy saying shaped by the world. After completing my bachelor's, I started working in the IT industry and have been since for the last 11 years. My work and life has always been intertwined. So I want to say it's been into three phases for the past 11 years. Phase one is where I started working as a data engineer in the IT industry. It was one of the best cultures that I have worked with. And it almost felt like I never left college. It was enjoyable. And it was from here that my general theme of life started to be what more or what's next or what's out there that I can explore for myself. And that's where I started searching for further study options, and I wanted to explore something outside of India. And then I moved to New Zealand. That's where I did my post-graduation diploma. It was here that life really started to happen with me after phase one. Completing the diploma, I returned to India for phase two. This is where my leadership journey began and was one of the most challenging experience to start with, but also really great exposure that really set me up for everything till phase three. I have been working with a lot of international clients with their digital transformation journey, helping set up automation initiatives, setting up data pipelines, reporting to the CEO to help really bring their vision to life. And that has been my general theme for the past phase two and phase three. For phase three, I think is where it really started to bring my entrepreneurial spirit in and what it takes to build something from the ground up. It is also here that some of the most life-changing events happened for me in phase 3, which is the last 5 years. Um, Outside of work, I think why I said earlier that my life is intertwined is because during phase 3, we went completely remote, 100% work from anywhere perk from the work. And so my love for traveling kicked in. And so my husband and I have been avid travelers, and we've been traveling for the past 6+ years. We've studied, lived, worked, across numerous countries around the world. It has been really enriching and fulfilling to learn and being exposed to various cultures and people and experiences. Last July, I gathered all the courage I have to go for a career break. It sounded like a good 10-year mark from my career of all the phases that I've been through to really just take a pause. And I think I really connected with your message today, Prajesh, on where the energy was being spent and how I wanted to spend it, and really what it took for me to build myself over the past 10 years is what this break has been about, to reflect on that, the person I've become, a bit of upskilling, more traveling. And one of the passions that I had was writing, and that's what I discovered on LinkedIn as well. And so that's what brought me here today, still reflecting and talking to you.
I love the way you have broken that up into phases. So often we just think of life as one big continuous journey, as a roller coaster, some people say. But as I love the
Yeah,
way you have broken into phases, which again shows the power of your reflection. I guess if I asked this question in January last year, you wouldn't have had the articulation of the phases. But I guess the pause allows you to go back and reflect. And I think this is one thing that I've become to really appreciate. A pause is is a good thing to have. We are so ingrained in our culture that once you start working, you don't stop working until you retire. But increasingly
yeah,
now we have this methodology of thinking, actually, wait a minute, why do we wait till we're 65 when, as you said, it took all the courage in the world, but only because it wasn't normal. Once you
yeah,
normalize it, then you go, hey, wait a minute, after 10 years, I can take a break. I always find it funny though,
yeah.
Manpreet, you probably find the same thing as well. In academia, academics are allowed to
Mm,
take a sabbatical after X amount of years of work. And I'm like,
mm,
why is it okay in academia, but nowhere else in no other industry has that? Isn't that crazy? I don't know why.
yeah,
That's so strange. So it's pretty
it
cool that you've
is.
done that there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
thank you.
but a question I have for you is something that I like to ask people who get into computer science and technology. It is a fantastic field. But the question I
Yeah.
have for you as a young female entering that field, what it's like for you, because there's this stereotype of the kind of person that gets into computer science. What is it like for you at that time, especially in India, where IT is going crazy, but you're a young female in that space? What is it like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. To really reflect on that, I think originally I wasn't going to go into computer science. Um, it's actually a very funny story where I felt that I wanted to be with my parents forever. I don't want to leave my family. I love them. We have been very close knit, and I felt I would go into teaching because I really enjoyed that. And I actually started my bachelor's in commerce. And that's something where I think I was already 6 months into that. And I've been studying computers in my school, I think since grade 5. And I was really great at it. I really enjoyed it. But I don't think it ever occurred to me that I wanted to do something in there. And then when I reached out to some of my friends for general catch up and my teachers, so what you're doing next and what's happening in your life, that's where I shared, this is what I'm doing. I'm just doing commerce and I wanted to continue to teach. And everybody looked at me with a shock. And they're like, Manpreet, are you serious? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing with your life? And it's them questioning me to challenge myself more. And that what took me to go into computer science. And then I switched my bachelor's to doing computer science for 4 years, a bachelor's in engineering. And it was during this time that really felt, oh, it's great that I took that advice. And it was a blessing that someone was, brave enough to challenge me to, or push me to get into that. Um, but there was definitely a very small ratio of girls to boys when studying computer science during that time. Um, but the funny thing is, the group that we had, we were the women who were in the top 3 or 5% who were doing the best in school. And we pushed each other, we learned from each other, and it really set me up for why I wanted to continue my experience in learning and practicing computer science. And from if I have to see the spectrum from where I was to where I am today, definitely we started with a very small ratio. Even in my phase one of data engineering, it was actually good because of the culture. We had almost 50-50% girls and boys, or men and women. And a lot of the women together were really something where their intelligence really showed on what they can accomplish. They were equally ambitious, equally hungry to learn and show what they are capable of. In phase two is where I really found the challenge. I often found myself as the only woman in the room, um, and lot of nuances to navigate with that. And a lot of other women who were not in computer science usually came up to me asking, "Is how are you doing it?" And it's one of the reasons why I said it was a challenging period, because I never thought I had to answer that question, because I came from a background where I actually saw women doing computer science and really thrilling at it. And it's during this time where I saw that, more motivation has to be there, because I've only been brought up with great, powerful, um, super intelligent women around me. And then that definitely changed in phase three, where when we started, I started as a founding member of the company, and we really ensured that we have a good ratio. And again, I think we have more girls in our company, which is for it currently, and very empowering. So dynamics definitely changed. There was a mix of both. It started with small, but very women who were not afraid to just show who they are, to um, me being the only woman in the room, which was surprising, and then to something where I wanted to ensure that everybody gets that opportunity. I think it's a great time right now where computer science could really be available to the masses.
I love that because I love that for lots of reasons, but I think my first
Yeah.
love is how you just stuck to status quo. In most Southeast Asian families, I love my family. I'm just going to be close to them. This is what I do because that's the culture that we
Yeah.
grow up in, and there's nothing wrong with that there. But the beauty of that part of the story is that even though you enjoyed computer science, enjoyed computing on grade five, it took some of your friends or your colleagues or your peers to bravely challenge you. Sometimes we
Yeah.
live in a world where someone just goes, "Oh, that's okay, don't worry, that's fine." You're happy, that's all that matters. And I've learned to respect the fact that when someone challenges me or challenges what I'm doing, sometimes I have to defend the challenge, but sometimes I have to think of a way. If they're saying that, maybe I need to think into it. Sometimes, and I don't know if you listen to Joe Rogan, but I like Joe Rogan
Yeah.
is pretty controversial sometimes, but one of the things he says is, a lot of us are married to ideas, and you
Mhm.
know, it's important for us to not be married to ideas. And in your case, you weren't married to the idea of being a teacher. If you were, that would, that challenge you to be like, what are you guys up to? And this wouldn't happen. So it's really, really beautiful. So that's beautiful. The second thing that I really loved about your story so far is that you spoke about how the first part, everything was fantastic. Phase one was great, and phase two is where the challenge happened. And we see this all the time when a female or someone from a minority group is put into a leadership position. The question comes about, the question is not, hey, you're an awesome leader, how are you being a leader? It's more about, hey, you're a full in the minority question here for you as a female. How are you managing? Which is such a crazy thing. And as
Yeah.
you said, for you, like, whoa, I didn't expect this here, which is what brings the challenges. Um, so how did you navigate that awesomeness phase one of, yeah, awesome team culture, to now you actually being, as you said before, one of the only, I'm gonna use the word minorities because it covers everybody, one of
Yeah.
one of the only minority groups in on a table.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's one of those questions where you really need to dig deeper.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think there are two things to it. One thing is resilience, that I think I had that deep within me, but really came into action during that time. And number two, surrounding myself with people who really were great reinforcements for me. Um, what I mean by those two is I remember being there, and you see the questions that came to me is, or that were projected, is, has she got it, or would she be able to do it? um, Often some of the things that I brought to the table was exactly what was needed for the strategy and what was implemented. um, I was actually brought back from New Zealand by my previous manager from phase one.
Oh wow.
It was with him that I was working, and he went on a sabbatical. And he then came to New Zealand during his sabbatical for traveling. And it was, I think, tramping through Tongariro circuit where he brought the idea, why don't we get started with something new back home? He has something on the horizon. And so that belief was already there. He believed in me to get the job done, but to come back to a new setting and to prove yourself that you would be able to do it was the main challenge there.
Yeah.
So when I was interacting with my manager, he would understand what I'm talking about. He would understand what strategy I'm talking about. He would understand who we are hiring and why we are hiring them. But often, some of the teams that I was working with were already recruited from within the company, and some of them would be um, more experienced than I was. So forget about more minority. There was another challenge of, she's a younger woman,
Yeah.
would how would that work? So that was another challenge that came in. um, but I think one of the things that really helped me is to not take my eyes off the objective or the goals, what the aim is and what the target is. One of the things that I learned there is to build trust as the first thing if you want to be a successful leader. I really had to ensure that my team or the people around understood that I am here to deliver, and that I know and I have learned something that I will be able to showcase, and that I really mean to be here for the growth in general. So when we come to that common ground, is where they start opening up a bit. Oh, okay, that sounds familiar, or that sounds relatable. Okay, we could do that. And that's something that I really had to keep doing, not once, not twice, but at least for the first year and a half, just to show up every day, to tell them that I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, I'm here to work with you and to help you grow. um, I also talked about resilience here is because a lot of times being in the meetings where I would not be, where I might have to help explain my point or put it across multiple times, um, is where the challenge came in. And I would go back home and really think about it. And that's where, you start, oh, life is very challenging. Why do I have to say things 3 times, right? But I think eventually you go back, a new day comes, and you gather that strength again, and you just say to yourself, "You got this." And it took quite some time to manage and navigate through that. And then I also talked about reinforcements. And this is a time where I talked about my manager who already believed in me. I was working with international clients. They were very understanding and helpful in knowing exactly what I was talking about. So the setting was a bit where I was on a payroll with the local company, but a majority of work was working with international clients. So the challenge was really where I had to work locally, to really have the room together and work with the team together there. So a lot of things were making mistakes and learning from them. Oh, this didn't work yesterday. Okay, let me try another thing today. Oh, that worked today. That stick with me to continue doing that for the rest of the time. And so those are the two things I would say that really built resilience to no, let's try it again. This today is a new day, let's try a new thing. And then reinforcements where my manager believed in me, and then my international clients were really invested and they were very collaborative, and they believed that I really got this. And so both of that really helped to navigate the whole scenario in a way that really set me up for success for phase 3.
You know what's so good about that? There is, or what's so beautiful about that? There is, these are the things that we talk about and I write about in my LinkedIn, and you commented on right on. But it's exactly what you said. We always speak about you got to have someone that believes in you. You know,
Yeah,
you can believe in yourself, and it's great. But you always, when you have someone who believes in you, like your manager and your client, it makes it so much easier. Especially as you said, when the days when you go home and go like, oh, this is so crazy. I can't do this here.
yeah,
What's going on here? And we all do that. Let's
yeah,
be honest. We make it sound like everything is all hunky dory all the time, but we all go home. We all have doubts. We all question things. But when you have that belief on the other side, it validates you, and it also validates not just you as a person, but your skill set. Because sometimes,
yeah,
people validate you for a certain criteria, but you go, hey, validate me for my skills. I'm an expert in the skill here. And I had a laugh when you spoke to me about being a young lady who was leading a team, because I had a coaching client a few weeks ago who's in the exact same position as you. She's based out of
yeah,
Singapore, and she's been made a leader, and her reporting line, the first person reporting under her, has been in the company for 15 or 20 years, and she's been there for 2 years. And she just goes, it's just so hard to work with them because they've obviously.
yeah,
So it made me laugh, because I was like, this is so crazy. Um, common. It's so common because it happens all the time.
yeah,
And before we get to this guy, this is actually real. And the second part that I
yeah,
liked about it was, my last article, which you wrote about, which you read, was the power of showing up. You showed up every single day, and as you said before, to build trust in your team, you have to show up.
yeah,
And all that you had to do one day was not show up for your team, and that's it. They were right, cool, back to square one.
yeah,
So just showing up every day
yeah,
is really beautiful. I'm going to segue just a little bit, and the segue is going
yeah,
to be about, why did you pick New Zealand? You're in India. You have choice. You can go anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. Then you decide
yeah.
to go to a place where the winters are beautiful and the summers are just as beautiful, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I like to joke about it is because um I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings. And I said, that's why New Zealand, I had to explore every nook and cranny where the movie was filmed. Um, but I think in reality, it had a lot to do with a place that I resonated with a lot. Um, there were a lot of barriers and challenges on picking my post graduation. I come from a very humble family, and it was not easy to put funds in to go for higher studies. I remember struggling for 3 and 4 months, knocking doors of every banks to help with a loan. And it was just not possible. I think a time came in where, um, yeah, I think a time came in after 10th or 11th bank where they said, I don't think it would be possible, maybe try next year or so. And it just felt that, okay, I mean, why can't I just go to study? I want to study. I'm sure I'm going to pay back the loan. I'm sure there could be something that can be done about it. But eventually, I think it was between Canada and New Zealand. I had to reject Canada because for every application, you pay an additional
Yes.
fee. And I couldn't even do that because I was like, no, I can't spare that extra either. And you had to try multiple universities. And then it filtered down to New Zealand. So it had to do a lot with that as well. And with, I mean, me being ambitious, I definitely wanted to try out US as well. But with the budget at that time, and that too from my parents, I was like, nope, it's just a dream. Um, but it was then boiled down to New Zealand. And I think it almost came to a point where, okay, I don't think I'm getting a loan. I don't think this is for me right now. Maybe I'll just find another job. And this was right after phase one, where I had already quit because I wanted to go for post graduation. And that was one of the teachings of impulsive decisions where I'm done with my work. I just want to go study now. Okay, everybody, goodbye. I'll see you next year. But when reality hits, 3 months in, you're like, wait a minute, there's a loan, and you're going to be said no 10 times. How do you get over that? And I remember I was very close with my grandfather, and he would come and sit by me in my room, and you're going to be okay. You're going to rock in your world, and you're a rock star, and don't worry, great things are going to happen. And they would say to me, it's okay if this is not possible, you'll find something else. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll find something else, I'll find another bank. And that was my 11th or 12th, I think, where I finally found one. They had great um, offerings, especially again for minority, and that worked out. It's a reason why we had to join the uni a week late. We had to move our joining date, so we missed a lot of things in that process. And yeah, my visa came in 1 week before we were meant to fly.
Oh,
And we
wow.
were like, okay, this is happening. This is happening. I was meant to go. And yeah, and then that what made me choose New Zealand there. And it was the best decision. I've fell in love with the country since then. I've found great people. I What I call my second family is there now. I've been connected with them since 2016. So yeah, one of the best decisions to come to New Zealand.
And there was a reason why I asked that question because, a lot of people think that internationals, people that come here on international, anywhere in the world, actually, they're wealthy and have it's easy access, but it's not an easy story, as you said, you had to knock on 10, 11, 12 banks before you could even get a loan. Forget about the application process. So
Yeah.
which is crazy. And I think this is why I was like, all right, cool. When you have to leave a country, that the payment is the first thing. But what I really, again, crazy full circle moment for me is, as you're talking about applying for all the places you wanted to go to, it was the same with me when I was applying to come to New Zealand. I'm from Zimbabwe, and when I came to New Zealand, one of the reasons I chose New Zealand was because there was no application fee. And as you said, just those application fees already are a barrier to entry, because you don't have money,
Yeah,
every time you spend whatever $100 or $300 for every,
yeah,
it just adds up and it's non-refundable. And in a country or in a place where you don't have that much money, so when
yeah,
you think about barriers of entry straight away, that's your first barrier of entry. So I think it's really awesome that you, first of all, again, you kept on showing up. This is a theme that you have. You kept on showing up, resilience. You kept on knocking on bank doors, and I'm sure your
yeah.
grandfather didn't think that you were that meant good to knock on bank doors, but hey, it worked out for you.
No,
So, which is really awesome.
yeah,
And I'm pretty sure that your
yeah,
family here in New Zealand and University of Canterbury has benefited a lot from your experience there and your time with them. So, which is really
yeah.
beautiful. And now, if we go back to your phases, so you have done phase one, phase two. You do your study, awesome. You come and be a leader. What was the motivation for you now to go, actually, wait a minute, now I'm actually going to take ownership of my ship and to create my own organization? Because it's very easy to be comfortable doing working for someone else. That's the
Mm.
comfort level, right? And to take that plunge and go, actually, I'm now going to be taking over and trying something. What is your motivator for that? And how did you choose the space that you wanted to work in, I guess?
Yeah. Um, I think another common theme is my manager. He was working as a consultant in phase two with us, and it was him who decided to have a parallel or a triage to his own entity. And when he was starting there, he said, "Why don't we do this together?" And that's where some of our uh, we enjoy calling ourselves OGs, the originals from phase one. We were three of us from phase one that really went into this. And because when you go through all these experiences in life, there are not just, okay, these are my learnings on what I can do, but there are also, okay, this is what I learned from life, and this is what I'm not going to do to someone else. So this is not what I'm going to build when something of our own comes in. And it's with that decision where my manager took on that I let's do something independent is when that decision came in, and we were aboard the ship together to steer it. And we started with four of us, or four or five of us, as the original. And I was responsible for one entire department. And yeah, that's where it again, the belief that my manager had in me to, you got this. This is all yours. Just go crazy with it, to set up this department and this whole division. And that's where I took the reins to start understanding what is the product that we want to build, what are the services that we want to offer, what kind of culture we want to curate. Something where I've had a great one from phase two and a really challenging one, great one phase one and really challenging phase two. And it's from there that really felt that, okay, I think I'm ready to do this. And again, when you say I'm ready to do this, oh, wait a minute, there are these things that you weren't prepared for that come at you with big swings. But it was basically from there that the journey started, where we took the decision to just work remotely. This was pre-COVID, so we call ourselves really, really
Innovators,
evolved and
yeah,
ahead of,
yeah.
yeah, much ahead of the time to already be remote. And yeah, just go from there. So I think that was the time where it really paved my way to do things from the ground up, on my own accord and with that level of responsibility. Yeah,
It's so beautiful, and beautiful because, again, the theme, like you said, is you had someone that believed in you. Um,
Yeah.
and that the power of someone believing in you is cannot be underestimated. But also sometimes some people just say, "Oh, yeah, we believe in you," but they don't do anything more than that. But it sounds like your manager did more than just lip service. Actually, hey, let's actually do the actual,
Yeah.
just walk the talk, not just talk the talk. So, which is really awesome. But again, I'm going to ask you a question. Is you said pre-COVID you want to do work remotely? What is that like for you? Because pre-COVID working remotely was like, oh, why would you
Hmm.
dare do that then? Whereas now it's a whole different world, right? Everyone does it now normally.
Yeah.
But like you said, you were innovators or involved at that time. There were people doing it, but it wasn't something that was, I guess, normal,
Yeah.
inverted
Yeah. Yeah.
commas. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it was definitely not conventional to do that. Um, the advantage to start early was it was just four of us. Um, and four of us who knew each other already for 6 years. So what that took us is the communication or knowing each other barrier was already not there. So when we started working remotely, working from anywhere, basically, um, the strategy, planning, vision, all of that came easy at that time because we knew exactly what we wanted from each other. It actually started to become challenging when the actual work started. And there were two things working remotely that happened. Um, Number one is when we started in 2019, working remotely meant we went to Canada and we started working from there. My, and Me and my partner, then we wanted to just travel and work. And it was easy because we were still laying out the groundwork. Um, Now, the big challenges that come when working remotely is the time difference. One is waking up while the other is sleeping. So we all almost used to, we call it the relay race, where we pass on the baton from one person to another, who's going to bed and who's waking up to take the work from each other. Um, Sometimes it also meant pushing beyond hours, for sure. I think the first year was very challenging because you have to lay out all the business plans and the contracts and um, uh, yeah, building statement of works and everything from there. So the time difference started to become a huge challenge. Then when we made our first hire, because it started easy with us OGs already understanding each other and learning from each other, our first hire is when the real challenge began. Because how do you manage accountability? How do you know that someone is by their desk working equally as dedicated as we were? Um, how do you know that someone can be trusted when you've never met the person actually, right? And that's everything that started during that time. And like you said, there were not many people who were doing that. We didn't know exactly what to expect out of that, or how do you build that. And again, it was all learning from mistakes, making mistakes, you know, just trial and test in the first year and a half. But then I think what really laid the best groundwork were the leaders that were chosen to do the job. In addition to us, I think we had a great network of other leaders who came on board and really set the groundwork. Um, there were a lot of um, documentation to ensure that when we onboard, we are all understanding the same language. That was the biggest challenge to come up with, not come up with, to resolve, which is how do we speak the same language when we're remote? I mean, let alone when we are together in person, there are so many misunderstandings. But in remote, that just amplifies, right? And that's where I think choosing the right leaders really worked, who helped lay the groundwork, who ensured that we all are speaking the same language, who helped understand what accountability and responsibility means. How do we have, or how do we pass it on to our new hires? And it's basically from there through osmosis when we started preparing layers of generations to learn from that is what continued down to everybody. We also didn't want to be an organization with a lot of policies. I think it laid out to be something that restricts creativity or free will, if that resonates. But we wanted to ensure that everybody has their own space to work, but at the same time ensure that they understand what responsibility and accountability means. And so those were some of the biggest challenges to come up with or to resolve during the first few years. But when we had that leadership set up and we had those systems set up that can ensure that everybody could perform at their best and have the support needed, it then started to it started to ease out. And today, 5 years later, I think we're 100 plus, all working remote from around the world, successfully running the teams.
That's really, really beautiful. That's really awesome. And the reason why I delved on that pathway was, again, everyone sees the success at the end, but all success doesn't start with success. It's challenging. And I love how how you said about communication. As you're sitting in the same room together, communication, we don't understand each other. One person can say one thing and it means some different context, and trying to communicate that across the world, across someone you don't know, is another challenge. So it's really, but again, what it highlights to me as I'm listening to the story is the awareness for you and your team, the OGs, the awareness to not use that as, oh, this is an excuse not for it to work, but to go, right, cool, we've got this challenge here, how do we resolve it? Because 9 times out of 10, people go, this is way too hard, we can't do this here. So it's the awareness, and you would have heard me say this many times, awareness precedes change. So you still the awareness, and how do you change and how do you work with that there? So it's really, really beautiful. But also the fact that you were innovative at that time to go, right, cool, we're going to go to Canada, we're going to explore Canada, have a great time, but we're also still going to try and do something. But what I liked what you said before was how you wanted to take your learnings from phase 1 and phase 2 to create a phase 3 that takes the learnings from those 2 phases, the good stuff, and how do you prevent the bad stuff in your phase 3. I'm sure phase 4 and phase 5 will be just as epic, if not more epic. So that's really, really cool. Talking about sorry.
I'm just going to add one more thing to that, which is the remote work. We are 100% remote, but we do take conscious efforts to ensure people still meet at least once or twice a year, to at least put a face on the names outside of the box that we see them. And that's something that we started, I think, in the second year. We started with once, which we call, team outings or company offsites. And so I remember the first one were about 30 people, again, a group of leaders, and then our first generation of hires from there. But then we started to see that it is something that is great to do once a year, because every time we hire somebody new, at least you're able to connect with the person, because there's nothing like the human touch. And there's no amount of flexibility or remote work, that can help with that. And so that's something that I do want to add, that we definitely did ensure that people do meet each other, get to know each other. I sort of we laugh about, what does this, when you're texting, there's no emotion to a text. It's really how you're feeling during that time is how you read it. So even if something is very funny at certain point, you feel, oh, that sounds serious. But when you know the person is how you can put that dialogue to it or put that personality into that text. And that's what these once a year or twice a year meetings really helped, to clear out any of those misunderstandings or any of those unknowns that existed in the team. So just wanted to add that as
That's
well.
so,
Yeah.
that's so funny because that was the question I was going to ask you. Like, it's so awesome being remote and having all that there, but how do you ensure that people
Yeah.
actually know each other? It's a bit like,
Yeah.
our communication will change now that we've met. But when we talk, when we write a message or a text, like you said, you might be saying something in a very serious tone, and I'll be like, oh, I'll be laughing because I've been in a happy mood. And I think it's
Yeah.
important for anyone listening to go, yeah, remote work is awesome, but nothing can beat seeing your colleagues at some point in real life. Nothing beats real life. Nothing beats actually seeing someone, hearing someone's actual laugh. Because technology is great, but technology doesn't actually capture the real essence of somebody's spirit and an aura. Everyone has an aura, and unfortunately, Zoom and
Mm-hmm.
blurred background takes with aura. So yeah, that doesn't work, does it? Yeah.
It doesn't help.
No, so I'm really glad you
Yeah.
said that because it's very easy for someone to go, oh, everything can be remote and have a team that's remote, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah. So I'm glad you spoke about that there because and I think this is why lots of companies are now saying, hey, you should come back to the office, at least once or twice a week, and lots of people are like, oh, why should we do that there?
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that hey, coming back and seeing your colleagues is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Keeps you sane as well sometimes when you
Yeah.
see your
Yeah.
colleagues. Because being at home the whole time, I don't know about that, but that's a personal opinion. Um,
Yeah. No,
I like,
absolutely. I think it's a mix of both. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not going to ask you a more fun question. I'm going to use the word fun. You said you love
Yeah.
traveling. Tell us some places, some crazy, awesome places that you've been to that you've been like, whoa, I would never thought I'd have been here. The reason I said that is because before we jumped into the podcast, you mentioned you came from a very small part of India,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if you think about that young person who was living in the mountains of India or growing up and now ends up in fill the gap. What is that like for you as a real pinch me moment?
Yeah. Um, it definitely has been very fulfilling. I grew up with a lot of movies, watching a lot of movies, and sometimes, and especially when I started traveling, oh, I saw that in a movie. Oh, it's real. Those are some of the things that start to happen to you. But I think one of the things that the pinch me moments was really when I made it to New Zealand. I was the first one from my family to travel internationally,
Oh
but
wow.
not the last.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of my siblings and cousins followed, who really enjoyed their time as well. But the pinch me moment was really when I used to call back home and show them, look where I am. A girl who would not want to leave family anywhere to go outside the city, who's left the borders, was a huge deal at that time. And I think New Zealand was really great in that sense. It was in 2020 when we returned to New Zealand for traveling, and then we got happily stuck because of COVID. Some borders closed,
Yeah.
and then but New Zealand was open after I think 2 months of
Yes.
lockdown, and that was the epic trip that we had. One of the epic trips that we had, where we traveled from the southmost point, which is Bluff, to the northernmost point,
Yeah.
Cape Ranga. We were we were true nomads at that time because we didn't own anything except a car. So everything was just packed in one car, and we used to just camp, and continue to travel, visit all the places that we could, and really used and cherished that time from moving around the country, and that really helped us understand what it takes to be humble, what it takes to talk to a lot of people, experience what other cultures bring. And I think some of the most beautiful places were in New Zealand. Some of our favorite uh, tracks are in New Zealand, the Hooker Valley, Tongariro. I think they're just fantastic. And it's from here, from that, which was a very youthful experience where you really understand the meaning of freedom or being more independent, of how it translates into you being um, more open to things that come at you. And that really helped us or exposed us to that kind of lifestyle. And then I think the second was when we went to Europe. I think that was also one of those trips where we were just with our backpacks and that's it. And we would just travel around, backpacking across Europe. One of the most beautiful one was when we were in Venice. I think it was that time where in Venice we realized the amount of people that you see, the real actual crowd that you saw was there, and this was just before COVID hit. And for someone who wouldn't even get a loan to travel, versus to be able to build yourself to a moment where you see the most beautiful sunset in the world, and you see the people who are traveling around you who have had their phases but they're still there, and I was able to be in a place similar to what a million other people were doing their traveling. I think it really put that pinch me moment to reality. At first, I think it was just okay, sure, I came abroad, but I think it was really in those time in Europe where you see so many people of colors and so many people who bring that joy, that I'm here, that I got this, and that I was able to do that for myself. And yeah, and then from there we went to US. We did a great, again, cross country trip from east to west, the entire road trip. The Utah was really good. There were five national parks, which is the Grand Circle of Five. We did that as well. It feels like another planet there. It doesn't feel like a place on Earth. And so some of these experiences really put you to a place where you can't forget where you came from, but you can't forget that what it took for you to be where you are with with that, when you soak it up all. And it just helps you to be humble, in that sense, to really understand and not forget where you came from, and cherish and take it as a blessing that you're able to have that for your life.
That's so yeah, you can see me smiling quite a bit as you're talking about that there. It's not about the trip, but it's about your, again, the awareness that you had during the trips, that yeah, these are all cool places, but for you as a young person there, first of all, as you said right at the start, you would never want to leave home. Now you're away from home. But I really love how you summarized it, and it just made me think about, when you're in the space here, everyone is going through their stories, but at one particular moment, when there's a sunrise or a sunset, or you're watching a beer or a waterfall or whatever, everyone is at
Yeah.
that same moment in that collective space, which is pretty crazy to think about humanity. And then for a split second, everyone's looking at the sun, and then everyone's doing their own thing. It's such a crazy, when I think about it right now, how many times do we do that every single day when you're in a group of lots of people, and we don't stop to think that, hey, in this 1 second or microsecond of life, we're all doing exactly the same thing, whether it be catching
Yeah.
a train, watching a sunset, or circling places like Utah, which is pretty crazy. So that's really, really beautiful. Um, yeah, that's just so inspiring and really, really beautiful. And inspiring because, as you said, you were the first from your family to jump on international flight, and that has led the way and paved the way for so many people from your family. So it's a generational thing. The ripple effect of these changes is massive, and you don't see it right now, but generations on, you go, whoa, wait a minute, this is what you started, which is beautiful. Talking about ripple
Yeah.
effects and changes, let's talk about we're going full circle now. Let's talk about your love for writing, and now you've come back to writing. So you've done all these crazy cool adventures and these cool things here,
Hmm.
and now a love for
Yeah.
writing. What sparked that for you? And it's like, actually, I'm going to start getting out there. And for those anyone that hasn't got LinkedIn, if you don't have LinkedIn, get a LinkedIn and jump on and
Yeah.
follow Manpreet, because you're writing really beautiful things and you share some beautiful thoughts.
Thank you for that, Pradesh. My writing, my love for writing actually started with my mom. She is a school teacher, and she used to have these, when I was young, she used to have these articles that needed to be published in her school's yearbook. And she used to write all these articles, and then she used to give it to me for editing or reading or proofreading. And I used to go through those, and I would yeah, just learn a lot of wisdom through those articles. I remember one of those being "Be the change you want to see in the world." That's the first article that came out, and it's since then that I continued um, reading through those, and then I started writing in my college for some of the articles for my college um, years in there, and it's through that I really felt that writing is so different than how you're thinking or how you're speaking. I would be very different when I'm speaking something, but putting that into writing is a whole together different dimension, and that's where my love for writing started to come in. Um, I continued writing for some of the challenges or some of the things that happened during my phase one, phase two as well. And it just felt that I've never started to write about um, it in public or my learning and lessons in public. And I started journaling about 3 or 4 years ago, and it just helped me put all the thoughts that I had to something tangible on what it means, or where what does it look like when you see it in front written. It translates something in your mind around that. And as I've been journaling, I started to see, why can't I put it online and see if it is helping someone? And um, in my mind and some of my leadership and mentorship that kicks in from everything that I did in phase five, I just felt that there are so many people out there who don't know about it. Um, my sibling and my brother-in-law, they're all almost in the same phase in their lives where they are working through the corporate ladder, and they're trying to understand. And one common theme is, I can't have a balance, I don't have a life, I feel tired all the time, or and listening to all of this, I feel I have it in my journal somewhere from 4 or 5 years ago. Or I have all of it written down somewhere of all the learnings that I've had. But I started to think, if I'm sharing something like that with my within my family, who are just trying and working through to getting up in the corporate ladder or in their career paths, how can I help others as well? And it really started from there. And in my break, when I actually had the time to reflect and I had the time to ponder on what my writing looks like, is where I started experimenting with it. And I think I'm just getting started. There's definitely a lot of rules and around what writing looks like, and a lot of it has a structure to start with, that here's what you write first, here what you write second, and so on. So I'm still working through that. But for me, I think I really just wanted to put my thoughts out there from a perspective that if more than two people in my own family needs it, I'm sure there are more who needs to hear some of these, to know that there are ways where you can really balance what it looks like to have a life, and not be, tired all the time, or be affected by work, or be affected by not being aware enough. Because I came from there where, oh, someone, if only someone would have told me this, this existed, or if this piece was just told me in during this time, I would have done it better. um but I think I'm a big fan of Maya Angelou, and she says, you do better, you do what you do to what you did, but you do it better when you know better. So I think that's what it really comes from, is if I know better today, how I can help others. And that's where really my writing started, to let me just put it out there and see if at least someone is benefited from it. So yeah, that's really where it all started and how it's going now.
And it's so true because we all go through experiences, and it's really quite. I think about this all the time. We all have our own journeys, but our journeys
Yeah,
all follow a similar path, or similar trajectory, but not at the same time. They're different times, and everyone has gone through some sort of. There's 7 billion in the world. Every one of us someone has gone through the same thing as you. Might not be the same name, but the same thing as you. And just putting it out there. Even if it's one person that reads it, when I put out my stuff, I have no idea who reads it. I have zero idea who reads it. I just put it out there. These are my thoughts, and it's pretty awesome when people read it. And even if it's just one person who goes,
yeah,
"Hey, this is really cool," it's awesome. And if nobody reads it, cool, whatever. At least those are my thoughts, and it's really beautiful that you're doing that there. But I also want to challenge you as well on something. You said
yeah,
with writing, there's a certain structure, whatever. But you can create, those are the rules that we live in. But you can also
yeah,
create your own rules. Like you can go, actually, wait a minute, I'm going to write in my style because this is who I am. And this is what
yeah,
happened to me because I was overthinking my writing. And if you would have seen my writing, I've changed the way I've written over the last. Before it is very formal, and I've actually become more playful. And I go between the two because I had the same question. I was like, I've got to follow the structure, but according to whose rules? Again, it goes back to
yeah,
your question about, you said you'd want to have all these policies here. So you go, wait a minute, if I can challenge these policies and these rules, maybe the more authentic people come out. So that's the challenge for you. But hey, your material is really beautiful.
totally.
Manpreet, we've been talking for
I,
over an hour now. We've been talking for a long time,
yeah,
which that's not a long time. It's flown really quick, and I'm sure there's so much we can delve into. But I don't want to keep you, because I'm sure you have some pretty
yeah,
awesome things to do over this weekend here. However, you don't just get off that lightly there. You've shared some amazing wisdom and some amazing stories. Our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and we invite every week our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket. Um, we'd love you to share some piece of knowledge to put into our basket. You've already put so much, but is there any particular piece of advice that you go, hey, this is something that I think is awesome for the whole world to hear?
sure. Um, I think it would be to, this is actually inspired by how brave and courageous people in um, services around um, army or navy or air force are, where a common theme, when something comes at you, you say stand your ground or hold your ground. And I think that's what has been a theme for when I started my break as well. And as I reflected, I think what it really means is life is going to come at you. There is no way to say, oh, I just want it easy. If you want something big in life, you have to stand your ground to let the life continue to come at you, and you will find a way if it's something that you really want. And it has something that has helped me always, to not give up in what you want. There is always a way to find it, but I have this reminder on my phone that rings every day in the morning to just stand your ground. There's going to be more challenges, but at this time, I think you have enough resilience and grit to keep going. I think that would be a theme right now that is in my life, and I hope it's something that can help others as well to, yeah, just stand your ground.
That's such a beautiful piece of knowledge because, as you said, life is going to come at us, whether we like it or not. Um,
Yeah,
whether we like it or not, and life is not easy. Too many times we have this narrative or this philosophy, this thinking that life is easy, but life is not easy. It's not been promised to be easy. It will be easy in a moment, but it
yeah,
can change in a moment. So that's really beautiful. Stand your ground because life is coming, but also stand your ground on a thing that you believe in.
yeah,
Sometimes when you stand your ground, you have to go, what am I standing this ground? Do I believe in it? I do.
yeah,
Boom. But don't be
yeah,
stubborn all the time. Stand your
absolutely.
ground because you believe in it.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Manpreet. This is really beautiful. I have learned so much about you, and you've shared so much wisdom and knowledge today, which is stunning. I wish we could talk longer, but we might have to have you back again another time. Any last words before we wrap up this fantastic chat?
Well, thank you so much, Prajesh, for having me. I think this has been really, really good. It's really great chatting with you. I had so many questions from you as well. I hope we could do a round two where I think I can learn more from you. I think your writings online, you mentioned about um, mine is good, but I think it's all you're the master of the
Oh, I don't
writing
know
at
about
this
that.
point because yeah, I think the way it's portrayed, it's very relatable. And yeah, I really hope that I get a chance to learn more from you and that we continue to stay in touch.
Oh, beautiful. No, thank you. That'll definitely happen. Thank you so much for jumping on today. To our listeners out there, hopefully you learned something. If you haven't learned something, go back and listen again because you've missed out. We think you're fantastic, and we really want you to enjoy this podcast. Till next time, keep safe, kakite, and don't forget to put something about knowledge. Till then, bye everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.